Hello, everybody. My name is Tanner Lapointe, and I am a program facilitator with the Schizophrenia Society of New Brunswick. Today, we're going to be talking about addiction and substance use disorders. So let's get right into it. So before we talk about substance use disorders, we first need to define a substance. So a substance can be defined as a prescription medication, over-the-counter preparations, alcohol, or illegal drugs such as cocaine, ecstasy, amphetamines and hallucinogens, steroids, or inhalants. So let's break down some of the different types of psychoactive substances. When we're using the term psychoactive, we're talking about a substance that affects our brain and thought process. So we have stimulants such as crystal methamphetamine. We have hallucinogenic drugs such as cannabis or LSD. We have depressants such as benzodiazepines or alcohol. And we have opioids such as heroin or fentanyl. So those are the different types of psychoactive substances. So what exactly is addiction? Addiction can be defined as an overindulgence or dependence on an addictive substance, especially alcohol or drugs. Of course, we know that we can be addicted to anything. We can be addicted to internet, we can be addicted to food, we can be addicted to sex. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be talking about addiction respective to alcohol and drugs. So addiction can be defined in two ways. We have the psychological dependence. This is when the individual believes a substance is necessary for social functioning. We've all heard people say things like, I'm going to need a drink before I do that. And you also have individuals who use alcohol and drugs as a coping mechanism. So they'll say things like, I drink because I feel helpless. So that is the psychological dependence. But we also have the physiological dependence. So with increased consumption over longer periods of time, the individual develops tolerance and withdrawal symptoms and other health problems occur when they stop using the substance. So we have the psychological dependence and we have the physiological dependence that makes up addiction. So what are the symptoms of addiction? So we have the inability to fulfill responsibilities. So maybe I couldn't pay my rent because I spent all my money on my last fix. We have dangerous use. So driving a car while under the influence of a substance. Legal problems. Maybe I got charged with driving under the influence or was involved in a domestic violence situation. And we have social and family problems. Any of these factors alone or combined could indicate a problem with addiction. So the 4 C's of addiction. We have craving, loss of control of the amount or frequency of use. Addiction is an illness. It is an illness just as much as diabetes is an illness. The individual is not necessarily in control of how much of the substance they're using. Compulsion to use and use despite consequences. Maybe I will continue to abuse alcohol despite losing my job. So what causes addiction? So like most disorders, there's no one specific cause we can point to, but there are some potentially contributing factors. Some of these factors include biological factors. So when we're talking about biological factors, we're really referring to our genetics. So if somebody in your family has had a substance use disorder, you are at a greater risk for developing the disorder. We have psychological factors, so that's your personality type and your brain. And we have social factors. So whether or not you live in a stable living environment, if you're in poverty, etc. Those are some social factors. So addiction in the brain. The brain is a very complicated organ. There is so much more to addiction in the brain than what I will be presenting with today. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. So our brain is made up of billions of neurons, which are nerve cells that receive various messages from neurotransmitters. A neurotransmitter is essentially a chemical messenger. So some examples of neurotransmitters include serotonin, which is involved in mood stability, epinephrine, which is involved in our energy levels. So when serotonin binds to a neuron receptor, it has an impact on our mood. So substance use alters the balance of these neurotransmitters. Many substances result in an excess of dopamine. Substance misuse over time can lead to permanent imbalance of certain neurotransmitters. Substances that work as dopamine agonists, so substances that increase levels of dopamine, result in the brain registering the substance as pleasurable and necessary for survival. As a result of this, the individual can experience craving and withdrawal symptoms when not using the substance. So those are some of the ways that addiction affects our brain. Of course, it is much more complicated than what I just communicated. So treatment for addiction. So we know what addiction is and what it looks like, but what are some of the treatment modalities? So we have psychosocial intervention. So that's counseling, psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, rehabilitation services. We have withdrawal management and detoxification programs, which allows the individual to be medically supervised while undergoing detoxification to ensure their safety. And we have treatments with medications, such as opioid replacement therapy. So maybe the individual will be placed on a methadone or Suboxone program to help them sustain from further opioid use. So I would like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video today. I hope you found it very helpful and informative. For your benefit, in the description, I've included some contact numbers if you're seeking help. Please remember, however, if you are in crisis, call 911 or proceed to your nearest emergency department as soon as possible. I have also included links to various websites if you're seeking more information about these topics. Thank you, everybody. Remember, recovery is expected.